The smell of motor oil and metal shavings still clung to my work uniform as I pulled into my own driveway after a brutal 12-hour shift. All I wanted was to see my baby, my 1967 Camaro SS that I'd spent 18 months rebuilding from a literal rust bucket into absolute perfection. I hit the garage remote. The door groaned open, revealing chrome so polished it could blind you and paint so deep you could swim in it. That's when my world exploded. Thief. Someone call 911. He's stealing my car. My HOA president neighbor came charging across the lawn like a rabid pit bull, cell phone already pressed to her ear. Yes, there's a black man stealing my car right this second. Send everyone. Police sirens were already wailing in the distance. She'd called before even confronting me. I'm standing in my own driveway, holding my own keys, looking at my own car that I built with my own hands, about to be arrested for theft. What would you do if your neighbor weaponized the police against you in your own driveway? Drop a flag emoji and tell me where you're watching from, because I guarantee this insanity is happening in neighborhoods all over the world. If you've ever dealt with a power-hungry HOA tyrant, or if you've ever dreamed of serving ice-cold justice to someone who wronged you, hit that like button right now, smash that subscribe button, and get ready for one of the most satisfying revenge stories you'll hear all year. Because what starts as a false police report ends with federal prison time, financial ruin, and the complete destruction of a woman who thought she was untouchable. Let's get into it. My name is Devin Turner, and I'm a third-generation mechanic. My grandfather taught my father. My father taught me. And we've been keeping cars running in this town for 60 years. When my divorce finalized last spring, thanks to my ex-wife's sudden discovery that grease under fingernails apparently isn't sexy, I used what little I had left to buy a modest house in Meadowbrook Estates. You know the type. Middle-class HOA community where the lawns are perfect, the mailboxes match, and everyone supposedly minds their own damn business. Or so the real estate agent promised me. The lies people tell to close a sale, right? Now, the Camaro wasn't some midlife crisis purchase. I found her at an estate sale 18 months ago, a rusted-out corpse that most people would have hauled to the scrapyard for $30. But underneath all that decay, all that oxidation and neglect, I saw something beautiful. Pure American muscle just waiting to breathe again. $3,200 later, she was mine. Every weekend for a year and a half became my personal resurrection project. New 350 small block engine. Rebuilt turbo 400 transmission. Complete suspension overhaul. The paint job alone took 4 months. Sanding. Priming. Wet sanding until my hands cramped. Until that hugger orange finish could blind low-flying aircraft. I documented everything. Every bolt. Every gasket. Every drop of sweat. Photos for insurance purposes. Kept every receipt in a 3-ring binder thicker than a phone book. The smell of fresh primer and metal shavings became my Saturday morning cologne. Coffee growing cold on my workbench while I lost myself in the meditation of mechanical perfection. This wasn't just a car. This was therapy. This was art. This was my connection to my grandfather, who taught me that if you're going to do something, you do it right. Now let me introduce you to the antagonist of our story. Patricia Blackwood. The human embodiment of an HOA fever dream. Patricia moved to Meadowbrook 5 years ago and immediately appointed herself queen of everything. She's a real estate agent who drives a white BMW that gets detailed more often than most people shower. Manicured nails that have never touched actual work. Highlighted hair that defies both gravity and good taste. And a smile that could freeze antifreeze. She'd been HOA president for 3 years running, unopposed because nobody else wanted to volunteer for neighborhood Gestapo duty. Her specialty? Weaponizing paperwork. Trash cans left out 12 minutes past pickup time. Fence posts measuring 2 1/8 inches instead of regulation 2 inches. Mailbox fonts that weren't Meadowbrook approved. The woman once cited me for grass that allegedly exceeded the 2.5-inch maximum. She showed up with an actual ruler. Just maintaining community standards, she'd said with that synthetic smile that never reached her cold, dead eyes. 2 weeks before the garage door incident, she'd marched over while I was bleeding brake lines. The screech of my impact wrench apparently offended her delicate sensibilities. Excuse me, but there's a noise ordinance. No power tools after 6 p.m. I wiped my hands on a shop rag, stayed diplomatic despite every instinct screaming at me to tell her where to shove her noise ordinance. Actually, city ordinance permits hobby work until 9 p.m. Happy to show you the documentation. Her smile turned arctic. Like the temperature in my garage had just dropped 40 degrees. Well, we'll see about that. This kind of industrial activity affects property values. The way she said industrial activity like I was running a meth lab instead of restoring American automotive history, told me everything I needed to know. This woman wasn't just annoying. She was dangerous. The day everything exploded started with Patricia's monthly pool party extravaganza. Saturday morning. Her backyard filled with neighborhood wives sipping mimosas and pretending to care about each other's vacation photos. I could hear the artificial laughter through my garage walls as I worked on my baby's carburetor. That high-pitched, forced sound that women make when they're competing over who has the better life. Then Patricia's voice cut through the chatter like fingernails on a chalkboard. "Oh, that's my new Camaro. I just bought it from a classic car dealer in Phoenix. $45,000 but totally worth it. They're shipping it next week." My socket wrench clattered to the concrete floor. What? I walked to the window and peered through the gap in my garage door. She was showing people photos on her phone. Photos of a car identical to mine. Basking in their impressed coups like she'd personally invented the combustion engine. My heart started hammering. My hands went cold despite the summer heat. Was this woman insane? Delusional? Both? That afternoon, needing brake fluid, I fired up my baby and backed out slowly. The 350's rumble echoed off the houses like mechanical thunder, deep and primal and absolutely gorgeous. When I returned an hour later, Patricia stood in her driveway like a statue of suburban rage. Arms crossed, face flushed, staring at my car with the intensity of a hawk watching a field mouse. I nodded politely as I pulled in. She didn't respond, just kept boring holes through my Camaro with those predator eyes. That night, I'm betting she spent hours online building her delusion brick by digital brick, convincing herself that somehow, someway, I'd stolen her imaginary purchase. By morning, she transformed from annoying neighbor into something far more dangerous. A Karen with a cause. When 2 patrol cars screeched into my driveway with full light show blazing, I knew my peaceful Saturday evening was officially screwed. 4 officers poured out like they were responding to an armed bank robbery. Which, according to Patricia's Academy Award-worthy 911 performance, they apparently were. Officer Martinez, a 20-year veteran with kind eyes and the patient demeanor of someone who'd seen every flavor of neighborhood crazy, approached with his hand resting casually on his belt. His partner, a younger guy named Thompson who looked like he bench-pressed squad cars for cardio, flanked him with notebook ready. "Evening, sir. We received a report about a stolen vehicle at this address." The sheer absurdity hit me like a brick to the forehead. Stolen vehicle, officer? This is my car. In my garage. At my house. That's like saying I stole my own refrigerator. Patricia materialized beside the officers like a suburban poltergeist, still clutching her phone with white knuckles. "That's him. That's the car thief. I just bought that exact Camaro yesterday for $45,000. I took a deep breath. Tasted the lingering exhaust fumes from my perfectly legal muscle car. Tried not to laugh at the cosmic joke my life had become. Stay calm, I reminded myself. Documentation beats desperation every time. Officers, I can prove ownership right now. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the photo album I'd obsessively maintained for 18 months. This car has been mine since I bought it as a rust bucket. I rebuilt every bolt from scratch. Martinez studied the progression photos with genuine interest. Rust bucket to rolling chassis to painted perfection. His eyebrows climbed as he swiped through images of me installing the engine block, priming body panels, stitching the interior. "That's some serious craftsmanship," he murmured, zooming in on a shot of the engine bay. "You do this professionally?" "Family business. My grandfather would have beaten me with a wrench if I'd done sloppy work." Meanwhile, Patricia was having what appeared to be a full psychological break. "He's lying. Look at these." She thrust printed photos at the officers, clearly downloaded from some dealer website 5 minutes before calling 911. "I wired the money yesterday. They were shipping it this week." Thompson examined her evidence with the enthusiasm of someone reviewing tax documents. Generic dealer stock photos. No VIN numbers. No actual paperwork. Just glossy images that could have been any orange Camaro built between 1967 and yesterday. "Ma'am, do you have purchase documentation? Bill of sale? Wire transfer receipts? Dealer contact information?" Patricia's face turned the approximate color of a fire engine. It's all being processed. The dealer said paperwork takes time for classic cars." While she improvised her explanation, I was digging through my garage workbench like an automotive archaeologist. That 3-ring binder. My Bible. The complete genealogy of my mechanical baby. "Here's my DMV registration," I said, handing Martinez the holy grail of vehicle ownership. 18 months old. My name. This address. Matching VIN. His flashlight beam danced across the official state document. Everything aligned perfectly. Numbers. Dates. Signatures. The works. Insurance policy too. I flipped to the next plastic sleeve. Progressive required photos of the restoration progress for agreed value coverage. Thompson was scribbling notes, occasionally glancing at Patricia's increasingly creative explanations. The woman was unraveling faster than a clearance sweater, and I was starting to feel almost sorry for her. Almost. Officers, he obviously forged everything. He's probably running some sophisticated identity theft operation. That accusation was my cue to deploy the nuclear option. From the very back of my binder, I extracted a piece of yellow legal paper. Edges soft from handling and memory. Written in the shaky cursive of a 93-year-old widow. 1967 Chevrolet Camaro. Condition, AS is. Extensive rust damage throughout. $3,200 cash. Buyer assumes all responsibility. Below that, a signature that belonged in a museum. Eleanor Hutchinson estate sale, followed by a phone number and date from 18 months ago. Martinez examined the handwritten bill of sale like he'd discovered buried treasure. This is the original purchase document? Eleanor was selling her late husband's project cars. Sweetest lady you'd ever meet. Made me promise to bring the car back for her to see when I finished. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my neighbor's sprinkler system 3 houses down. Thompson closed his notebook with the finality of a judge's gavel. Ma'am, this gentleman has clear chain of ownership documentation spanning over a year. Your evidence appears to be internet printouts. Martinez's tone shifted to that special register cops reserve for people having public meltdowns. Ma'am, I need to inform you that filing a false police report is a misdemeanor offense in this state. My dad was a prosecutor for 30 years. I've seen people get real jail time for knowingly providing false information to law enforcement. The color drained from Patricia's face like someone had opened a valve. There must be some terrible mistake. The stress of car shopping. You know how confusing these things can be. But her eyes told a different story. As the officers prepared to leave, I caught her staring at me through her living room window with the cold calculation of a chess master planning her next move. This wasn't over. This was just round one. Monday morning slapped me awake with the subtlety of a diesel engine backfiring. I'm stumbling to my mailbox in yesterday's work clothes, coffee mug steaming in the crisp air, when I spot the official HOA violation notice tucked inside like a venomous snake. Notice of covenant violation. Unauthorized commercial vehicle storage. The citation claimed my work van, a perfectly ordinary Ford Transit with Turner Family Auto painted on the side, violated community standards. $200 fine. 48-hour compliance deadline. At the bottom, Patricia's signature flourished like she just signed my death warrant. Through my kitchen window, I watched her power walk past my driveway, shooting glances at my van like it was parked on her grandmother's grave. Her morning jog route had mysteriously expanded to include 17 passes by my house. I counted. Here's what most homeowners don't realize about HOA covenants. They're actual legal contracts, not suggestions written by suburban dictators having midlife crises. My divorce lawyer taught me that everything has a paper trail. And paper trails don't lie. I spent my lunch break at the county courthouse, digging through public records like a legal archaeologist. What I discovered was better than finding a winning lottery ticket in my back pocket. My van, purchased in 2017. 3 years before Meadowbrook enacted their commercial vehicle restrictions in 2020. Any vehicles owned before rule changes are automatically grandfathered in. Protected by law from retroactive enforcement. Patricia could complain until her vocal cords snapped, but she had zero legal authority. I drafted a response that would have made my old man proud. Attached copies of my purchase documentation. Hand-delivered it to the HOA management office. The receptionist's eyes widened as she read my rebuttal, probably calculating how much trouble her board member had just bought herself. "Oh dear," she whispered like she was watching a car accident in slow motion. "Mrs. Blackwood isn't going to appreciate this development." She had that right. By Wednesday, my mailbox had become Patricia's personal complaint distribution center. 3 more violation notices materialized like bad magic. Alleged oil stains on my driveway. I power washed monthly with the dedication of a monk. Excessive automotive odors from my garage. Apparently the honest smell of WD-40 and determination offended her delicate suburban sensibilities. Noise violations during perfectly legal hours. The woman was carpet bombing me with paperwork, hoping something would stick long enough to cause damage. That's when I made the smartest investment of this entire war. I went full Big Brother on my own property. 4 high-definition security cameras strategically positioned, all recording to cloud storage. Night vision that could spot a mosquito landing on my mailbox. The footage revealed Patricia's new hobby, property line surveillance. Every morning, she'd patrol our shared fence with her iPhone, taking photos, measuring distances with a collapsible yardstick that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. The woman had turned neighbor watching into an Olympic sport. Thursday evening brought the nuclear option, an emergency board meeting to address my ongoing violations. The notice appeared in my mailbox at 4 p.m. for a 7 p.m. meeting. Barely legal notification designed to prevent anyone from mounting an actual defense. I showed up at the community center expecting a kangaroo court and found something worse. 3 middle-aged women sitting around a conference table like they were planning a church fundraiser. Patricia. Her nervous lieutenant, Claire, who apologized for breathing too loudly. And Janet, whose primary qualification appeared to be nodding enthusiastically at everything Patricia said. "Where's the rest of the board?" I asked, claiming a chair across from this improvised tribunal. Patricia's smile could have preserved meat for winter. "This is quite sufficient for tonight's business. We're implementing an emergency ban on all automotive repair activities, effective immediately. Past violations carry a $500 fine." I pulled out my phone and opened the HOA bylaws I'd memorized that afternoon. Knowledge is power. But applied knowledge is a tactical nuclear weapon. Fascinating theory. But Section 4.3 requires 7 days advanced notice for voting matters. I scrolled through the document like I was reading a restaurant menu. And Section 4.7 mandates a quorum of 5 board members for official votes. I looked around the pathetically empty room. I count 3 people. Which gives this meeting all the legal authority of a neighborhood book club. Claire's face turned the color of overcooked shrimp. "Well, this is just preliminary discussion." And Section 2.9 states that invalid meetings create personal liability for individual board members. I done my homework, thanks to 3 hours of legal research and a pot of very strong coffee. Patricia's composure shattered like safety glass. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Coming into our neighborhood with your people, and your activities." The venom in her voice could have stripped paint. But my old man taught me something valuable about dealing with bullies. Stay calm. Stick to facts. Let crazy people hang themselves with their own rope. "I think I'm a homeowner who reads contracts before signing them," I replied. Novel concept, I know. That's when a neighbor I'd never formally met appeared in my driveway later that evening. Thomas Martinez. Apologetic and slightly embarrassed. "Most of us think she's completely lost it," he confided over the hood of my van. "Want to grab coffee tomorrow? I think it's time we talked." Coffee became a coalition. Thomas brought 3 other families who'd been systematically terrorized by Patricia's reign. Miguel, the lawyer, had been fined 4 unauthorized mailbox fonts. Sandra, the accountant, got cited for planting flowers without architectural committee approval. Each of them had documentation. Proof of Patricia's harassment campaigns going back years. "Time for coordinated resistance," Thomas declared, stirring sugar into his coffee with revolutionary fervor. "Individual complaints get ignored. Group action gets results." Friday afternoon found me in the county courthouse basement, a fluorescent-lit purgatory that smelled like old coffee and bureaucratic despair. The records clerk directed me to research room B with the enthusiasm of someone pointing toward a public restroom. "HOA financial records are in the corporate filings," she wheezed. "Good luck making sense of that mess." 3 hours later, surrounded by paper stacks that looked like a tornado had hit an accounting firm, I discovered why Patricia guarded these documents like nuclear launch codes. Meadowbrook's HOA financial statements read like a masterclass in creative embezzlement. $15,000 paid to BNB Property Solutions, for undefined consulting services. $8,500 to Patricia's Best Gardens for landscaping that had never materialized. $12,000 to Blackwood and Associates for legal services that coincidentally began exactly when Patricia's divorce proceedings started. The beautiful part? All 3 companies shared the same business address, 1247 Maple Lane, Patricia's house. A quick dive into the state business registry confirmed what my gut already knew. BNB Property Solutions, sole proprietor Patricia Blackwood, established 6 months after her divorce filing. Patricia's Best Gardens, officially dissolved last year after completing 0 actual projects. Blackwood and Associates, her ex-husband's law firm. Our elected HOA president had been systematically looting the neighborhood fund like a suburban Pablo Escobar, funneling approximately $78,000 into her personal legal defense fund over 2 years. But the discovery that made my hands shake wasn't the theft itself. It was the hunting pattern hidden beneath. Cross-referencing complaint dates with recent real estate sales, I uncovered Patricia's true business model. She'd systematically target homeowners with escalating harassment until they sold below market value. Then use her real estate license to facilitate quick sales to investor contacts. Double commission plus kickbacks from grateful buyers picking up distressed properties. 3 families had fled Meadowbrook in the past year after surviving Patricia's special attention. The Hendersons sold $40,000 under appraisal after months of citations about their son's basketball hoop creating excessive noise. The Patels surrendered and moved after weekly violations for culturally inappropriate cooking odors that allegedly violated community standards. My case fit her playbook perfectly. Single homeowner. No family support network. Prime property worth $380,000. Perfect target for forced sale manipulation. The nuclear revelation was buried in a stack of foreclosure notices. Patricia's own house was in default. $23,000 in unpaid HOA dues. To her own association. Back taxes. Attorney fees. Credit card debt. The works. Her foreclosure hearing was scheduled for exactly 4 weeks from today. The irony was so perfect it belonged in a country song. Our HOA president, the woman who terrorized neighbors over minor rule violations, hadn't paid her own dues in over a year. Everything clicked into focus like adjusting a camera lens. The escalating desperation. The increasingly unhinged harassment. The willingness to file false police reports. Patricia wasn't just a power-hungry Karen. She was a cornered animal facing financial obliteration. And I represented her last chance at a major commission before the bank seized everything. I photocopied everything. My hands trembling slightly as the machine hummed through page after page of evidence. $17 for the privilege of documenting my neighbor's criminal enterprise. The best money I'd ever spent. Saturday morning transformed Thomas's garage into mission control for Operation Takedown Karen. The air smelled like coffee, motor oil, and the sweet scent of impending justice. Thomas had assembled what I could only describe as the Avengers of neighborhood warfare. Sandra Morgan, forensic accountant who could spot embezzlement like a bloodhound tracking bacon. Miguel Patterson, semi-retired corporate lawyer whose idea of fun was destroying people in depositions. Linda Martinez, high school teacher with organizational skills that would make NASA jealous. Carlos Mendez, contractor who knew every building code loophole in the Tri-County area. Jesus Christ on a cracker, Sandra muttered, spreading Patricia's financial records across the table like a CSI investigator examining murder evidence. This woman's embezzlement technique has all the subtlety of a brick through a window. Miguel pushed his reading glasses up his nose, scanning documents with the predatory focus of a shark smelling blood. 78,000 in fraudulent transactions. Paper trail cleaner than my grandmother's kitchen. Documented harassment pattern. Prosecutors dream about cases this easy. Our battle plan emerged over 2 hours of increasingly caffeinated strategy sessions. Operation Documentation Fortress. Carlos would turn our neighborhood into Fort Knox with security cameras, motion sensors, night vision, cloud backup. Operation Legal Annihilation. Miguel explained HOA corporate governance with the enthusiasm of someone describing his favorite hobby. Board members have fiduciary duties under state law. Every fraudulent transaction creates personal liability. Operation Public Humiliation. Linda's teaching background made her our propaganda minister. Door-to-door information campaign. Professional flyers explaining the theft. Coordinated social media exposure. The financial impact was neighborhood destroying. 78,000 stolen from 40 households meant every family had been systematically overcharged nearly $2,000. When soccer moms discover their HOA president has been picking their pockets, suburban revolutions happen fast. Monday morning brought the sweet sound of panic in the form of Patricia's voice echoing across the neighborhood like a fire alarm having a nervous breakdown. She was pacing her driveway at 7 a.m., phone pressed to her ear, gesticulating wildly at anyone unfortunate enough to make eye contact. I need an emergency board meeting tonight. Something's happening and I need legal protection. The emergency assessment notice appeared in every mailbox by noon. $500 per household for immediate legal defense against outside agitators attempting to destabilize community governance. What Patricia didn't know was that Thomas attended her pathetic three-person meeting with a digital recorder hidden in his jacket pocket. "They're investigating our finances," Patricia's voice crackled through the speaker when Thomas played it back later. "I don't know how much they know, but we need to control the narrative before this gets out of hand." Claire's nervous response was barely audible. "Patricia, maybe we should just..." "No. I've worked too hard building this community to let them destroy everything." Wednesday night's break-in was the kind of criminal masterpiece that would make the Three Stooges proud. At 2:33 a.m., while normal people were dreaming about vacation destinations, Patricia was living her best burglar life at the HOA management office. The security footage looked like a rejected scene from a heist movie written by someone who'd never actually committed a crime. There she was, using a stolen master key with all the stealth of a rhinoceros in tap shoes, frantically feeding documents into an industrial shredder like she was making the world's most expensive confetti. The silent alarm triggered faster than Patricia's common sense had abandoned her. Officer Martinez arrived to find her elbow-deep in evidence destruction, surrounded by paper snow that used to be financial records. "Ma'am, step away from the computer and put your hands where I can see them." Patricia's response was pure daytime television gold. "You don't understand. They're destroying everything I've built. This community was perfect before they came." Bail was set at $25,000. Which for Patricia might as well have been $25 million, considering her financial situation resembled the Titanic after meeting the iceberg. She spent 3 days in county lockup, probably the first time in her adult life she'd been somewhere without a manager to complain to. The sentencing hearing on a crisp Thursday morning felt like the season finale of the world's most satisfying reality show. The courthouse parking lot resembled a neighborhood reunion, with 40-plus residents carpooling like we were heading to the world's most important sporting event. Judge Patricia Hernandez's courtroom was packed beyond capacity. Every pew filled with faces I'd come to know as allies over the past 3 months. The smell of nervous energy and courthouse coffee mixed with the collective anticipation of people who'd waited far too long for justice. Patricia sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit that clashed spectacularly with her fake blonde highlights, looking like a deflated balloon animal beside her overworked public defender. The woman who'd once terrorized our neighborhood with clipboard authority now resembled a suburban scarecrow that had lost a fight with a tornado. When Judge Hernandez called for victim impact statements, I stood first, my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. "Your Honor, this case started with a woman calling 911 because I opened my own garage door," I began, my voice steadier than I'd expected. "But it was never really about a car. It was about power, control, and what happens when someone decides they can terrorize their neighbors without consequences." I described the escalating harassment, the fake police reports, the systematic theft that had robbed every family of thousands of dollars. "She didn't just steal our money," I continued, making eye contact with Patricia, who refused to look back. "She stole our peace of mind, our sense of community, our belief that neighbors look out for each other instead of preying on each other." Thomas spoke next. Sandra presented the financial evidence with forensic precision. Linda described the educational impact of watching their community stand up to corruption. When it was Patricia's turn, her attorney launched into a performance worthy of community theater. Mental health struggles, divorce trauma, financial pressure. Every excuse except personal responsibility for criminal behavior. Patricia finally stood to address the court, and what came out was pure, undiluted audacity wrapped in crocodile tears. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she sobbed, dabbing her eyes with tissues. "This community meant everything to me. I was just trying to maintain standards, protect property values." The courtroom's collective eye roll was practically audible. Judge Hernandez had clearly heard enough. "Ms. Blackwood, in 30 years on this bench, I've rarely encountered such a systematic abuse of fiduciary responsibility combined with racial harassment and criminal intimidation." She paused, studying Patricia with the expression of someone examining an interesting but repulsive insect specimen. "You held a position of trust and used it to steal from the very people who elected you. You targeted a minority homeowner with false police reports that could have resulted in tragedy. You destroyed evidence, attempted to flee jurisdiction, and even now refuse to accept responsibility for your crimes." The judge's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "This court sentences you to 4 years in state prison, full restitution of $112,000 plus court costs, and 5 years supervised probation following release." The gavel came down like thunder. The courtroom erupted in applause that Judge Hernandez didn't even try to quiet. 40 households getting justice sounds different than regular applause. It's deeper. more satisfying. Like the sound of the universe correcting itself. As Patricia was led away in shackles, she finally looked back at our section of the courtroom. The expression on her face wasn't remorse or apology. It was pure, concentrated hatred for people who dared to hold her accountable. 6 months after Patricia's sentencing, Meadowbrook Estates had transformed from a suburban police state into something resembling an actual community. The smell of Saturday morning barbecues and the sound of kids playing in yards without fear had replaced the tension that used to hang over our neighborhood like smog. Our new HOA board, Thomas as president, Sandra as treasurer, Miguel handling legal affairs, implemented radical concepts like transparency and common sense. Monthly financial reports were posted online. Board meetings were actually announced in advance. Violation notices required photographic evidence and reasonable timelines. The community garden project that Patricia would have cited into oblivion was now flourishing in the former restricted use area behind the clubhouse. Property values had increased 15% since our dictator's removal. Turns out buyers prefer neighborhoods known for community that defeated corruption, over HOA president embezzles money while harassing minorities. The restitution payments arrived like Christmas morning spread across 12 months. Every household received their stolen money plus interest. My personal life had evolved in directions I'd never expected. Sandra and I had been dating slowly and carefully for 4 months, bonding over shared experiences of standing up to bullies. The Camaro that started this entire saga was now famous in classic car circles. Featured in magazines as the car that defeated an HOA Karen. I'd received offers to sell, but some things aren't for sale. Especially vehicles that accidentally became symbols of standing up to institutional racism and suburban tyranny. The legal precedent our case established was being cited in HOA fraud prosecutions across 3 states. State legislature passed the Meadowbrook Act, requiring annual financial audits for all HOAs with budgets over $50,000. Last month's email from a viewer in Phoenix, another veteran being harassed by his HOA president, reminded me that our story had inspired people facing similar battles across the country. The neighborhood block parties were now monthly traditions, with everyone contributing dishes and stories and the kind of genuine friendship that Patricia's rule had made impossible. As I write this, I can hear Thomas's lawnmower and smell Linda's weekend baking project drifting through my garage windows. The sounds of a healthy community. You know what I learned from all this? Bullies, whether they wear business suits and carry clipboards or run HOAs from their ivory towers, they all make the same fundamental mistake. They underestimate people. Patricia looked at me and saw an easy target. A divorced mechanic who'd just roll over and take whatever she dished out. What she should have seen was someone who knew how to read contracts. Someone who documented everything. Someone whose grandfather taught him that if you're going to fight, you fight smart. She thought she was playing neighborhood politics. She was actually tap dancing into a federal fraud investigation. And here's the thing about justice. Real justice, not the cheap kind you see in movies, it doesn't always come fast. But when it comes complete. Patricia didn't just lose. She lost everything. Her freedom. Her money. Her reputation. Her career. Her house. All because she couldn't resist making my life hell over a car I built with my own hands. Sometimes karma doesn't just knock on your door. Sometimes it shows up with handcuffs and a 4-year prison sentence. If this story gave you chills, if it made you want to stand up and cheer, smash that like button right now. And tell me in the comments, have you ever dealt with a power-hungry HOA president? What's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed? Drop your story below. Your experience might help someone else fight back. Subscribe to this channel for more stories like this. Stories about ordinary people standing up to bullies and winning. Stories about justice prevailing over corruption. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss next week's video, because I'm telling you about the Karen who tried to steal a military veteran service dog and learned about federal crimes the hard way. Some battles are worth fighting no matter how long they take. Thanks for watching. And remember, document everything. Build community. Truth wins.